So how's it been going, Craig?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Andrew.
Since the last time we spoke, well, the hearings at the Environment Court have finished.
Yes.
Yeah. And how's that gone for you?
It was an interesting experience. I think the EPA did a good job. It was a good opening and a good closing. Quite a long, slow process. I found it to be interesting because it's not always about what you think it's about. And me, I'm used to industrial process, running a business, making things happen, employing people, making a dollar. This is a totally different experience for me. So, yeah. The hearing was politically charged, and I understood that. Although I don't see it as being a political issue, it is a political issue. For me, this is just about doing the right thing by the environment. I'm 55 years old, grew up with landfills in my whole life and just understand that that's not a path forward. So for me, it's quite a simple solution that I am struggling to understand why it's a political issue and why we have such activism around it. And obviously, being a businessman, I understand that when we focused our whole waste lobby system around reuse, recycle, and then the levies we used to then fund both councils, district and regional, and wastemen's applications, it was at that point that I understood why it was such a big issue.
Money, invested interest?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that the nation is invested in landfilling. The whole system is set up to put rubbish in the ground and bury it.
Correct.
And you're an interloper.
I'm not quite sure what interloper means.
Well, if Paewira is built and goes ahead, it's going to completely transform the way that we deal with waste. And a lot of people and a lot of councils, they've got everything invested in landfill, and it's going to hurt people.
It's not really going to hurt people. It's just going to take it in a different direction. Zero waste as an idea is great. I still believe in a lot of the philosophies around reuse and recycle, but it's obviously not working. And if you don't understand it, then you're just not being honest.
And you can have all the zero waste strategies in the world, but unless we have a supply chain that produces 100% recyclable materials, it's not going to happen, is it?
No. I know that I do a lot of recycling for cardboard, paper, plastics, e-waste, metals, with the exception of probably precious metals. That's what I've done my whole life. And when you sort of work in that space all the time, and then you're moving over into waste, to me it's really, really simple. This is about money. And we've built these big companies, and these companies aren't doing anything wrong. They're doing the right thing. They're paying people. They've built up service, and they're servicing councils. And I work with a lot of these companies, and there is nothing that they are doing wrong. But the focus that we're putting on them, where they're only able to make money by landfilling, and then we're dragging all of that sort of cost back out of them to try and make them recycle, I believe is the problem. And if we really want to get to zero waste, and I'm not 100% sure, but last time I was in Europe and I was traveling through Germany and Italy and things like that, and going around all these different plants, not just waste energy plants, but looking at different equipment providers, industrial space. And every time you see an industrial space, you see a waste treatment space right there. Where's that power coming from? Oh, over here. Interesting. How they're managing their water systems, how they're managing their roads. To me, we're just so far behind. I'm in the metals recycling business, very close to waste. We haven't bridged that gap yet where we're moving across sole service providing to industry, right across waste and recycling. We haven't made that leap yet, but we're getting there. There was a guy that was running TPI, Mr. Terry Peabody out of Australia, about 10, 15 years ago, and he was close. He bought waste management, he was into metals, he was a shareholder in one of the companies I ran, and he was starting to build that circular economy, right? You got companies like Visi doing great things. EnviroWaste, great things. EnviroWaste owner, CKI, owns two of the largest waste to energy stations in the world. One in Holland, the other one in China. But their investment in EnviroWaste is about landfilling. Do they know about waste to energy? Absolutely, they know about waste to energy. Do they know it's better? Of course, but this is about making money. I think EnviroWaste is a fantastic company, waste management as well, Green Gorilla, all good operators, but this comes down to our rules, our desires, our councils, and our people that we're voting for. But we're also seeing now we're separating our water, right? We've got problems in our water. Why do we have problems in our water? Why do we have problems? We know why we have problems in our water. We've got these large companies that are working beside our water, and I understand, going through that process, I understand that any companies that have whole planning divisions that work with councils, former councillors, former mayors, political people, working for any company that has more planners than a council, all right, in my view, we need to keep an eye on. We need to keep an eye on them. Just GCS alone, we had 23 support contractors. I mean, the cost of that project, this isn't a revenue project, this is a cost project, and which has, been quite damaging, and for me and my family. But we believe in the environment, we believe this is the right thing to do, and it's been a little bit hard to understand why people don't understand that this is going to be better.
You started all this because your metal recycling business produces a lot of waste material that can't be recycled.
Correct.
So you hated seeing it going to landfill, and you were looking for another solution, and you came across waste to energy, which is not a big mystery. I mean, it's a very standard thing all over the world.
3,500 plants around the world.
And it's very safe, it's a well-developed, it's a mature industry. And you saw this and you thought, well, here's my solution. This is what I can do to improve our environmental footprint in New Zealand.
What I didn't understand at that time, and even last time we spoke, was why we don't already have it. One of the key things for me, and one of the first conversations I had was, is this legal? Is these emissions legal? How do they ensure that you're doing the right thing? Because the first plant I went to was quite average. It was a plant in Middle Germany, small plant, doing 3 megawatts, really small, but also providing steam, parked right next to a tyre factory. And the small town, 10,000 people, about the size of Te Awamutu, and it was right in the middle of the town. And this was the transfer station, and it was the first one I ever went to, and it was pretty much automated. There was no treatment around the waste. It just everything went in there. And I was shocked because one thing I was shocked about was that these deliveries were just happening over and over again. Same rubbish trucks pulling up, high-speed door, tipping in, door come down. I couldn't smell anything. And it was like right there. And I was like, why can't I smell anything? Negative pressure. I didn't understand what that meant then. Negative pressure. Negative pressure means that the pressure inside the furnace is different to the outside. It sucks all the oxygen in one direction.
They're designed so that they can be in a populated area and nobody knows that they're there.
Well, I think noise. There's noise, but I don't think it's abnormal noise. It's noise with things on the road. I mean, the trucks go past every day, right? Rubbish trucks. They're in the neighbourhoods. But then they go inside a building, and then they empty and they come back out of the building. What you don't see is, if we look at our transfer stations here in New Zealand, we've built these beautiful transfer stations and they're concrete swimming pools. We've talked about this before. And we think this is great. We throw it in and then they bring a loader along and push it into a hole, and then it goes into a hole. And we think, great. But the reality is, it's going in a bin. Their bin then gets pulled onto a trailer. That trailer goes 100 kilometres. If it's from New Plymouth, it goes 300 kilometres. It's either going to Palmy or, Auckland region, Pukekohe, Redvale, any of them. But we're moving waste, including all Waipa's waste, out of the region. That's NIMBY behaviour. That's not in my backyard behaviour. I think the last one in the King Country is closed. The ones in New Plymouth are closed. And we need to understand that by sending that in trucks to monolithic landfills, you may think that you're living the right way, but ultimately, those landfills are by our rivers, and no one really knows what happens under the ground. And all it takes is a small earthquake, crack in that membrane, and all of a sudden, and we won't see it. We're going to see the issue in the waterways later on. And it's not the guys' faults that are running these places. I want to make that clear. It's not their fault. But in Europe, you have to treat something twice before it goes to a landfill. The levy is $200 a tonne, not $50. If you want to create room for recycling, you need to be able to promote value. And the only way to promote value or innovation is to increase the levy. They've been talking to me about, you're anti-levy, you want to do things cheap. Now, for me to do the ASR or the flock from a metal shredding plant, an ASR can be anything. It can be these tables, it can be these chairs, it can be a car, it can be whiteware, it could be small appliances. All right, this is all of the goods that we're talking about flowing around the world every day without permits. This is the ASR that they say is toxic, cancer-causing, hazardous. They throw these words around like they're softball bats. They're trying to scare people. But the reality of it is that this stuff needs to be dealt with. It needs to be treated. And it's a high-value fuel. Anything that's plastic it's basically created out of oil, the oil-making process. All right? I really struggle with some of the behaviour on this, to be honest with you. I don't think that waste-to-energy plants are the 100% treatment of waste, but it is definitely a waste treatment tool, in my view, to create energy.
But it's also a recycling tool, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's very difficult to recycle anything that's mixed, anything post-consumer. The cost to do that isn't achievable. It's not achievable. The machinery can do so much, and other than that, it's not going to be able to achieve the cost around sorting plastics, for instance. I think there's 8 different types of plastics. They all have a value if they're independent, uniform, and then you can screen them down by colour. Yeah, then they have a value, but the way to achieve that is just not possible. A, you got to be able to train people. B, no one wants to be touching that stuff. C, it's already mixed, and it's now got bacteria on it. So we want people to go through sorting. It's just not possible. The problem with zero waste is it's being captured by paid people whose job is to promote it, and they're paid by the levy. So their job is to create content to push their position. Me, I kind of believe in that stuff too, right? But having worked in the waste industry for a long time, I understand more that what they see isn't what they get. And I understand what's possible in the recycling world and what's practical and what's really happening. So I don't agree with them that, in fact, I strongly disagree with them that we have the current path forward. I don't think that we should have too many waste-to-energy plants, because then we're just burning because we need to burn, right? But right now, we have none. My view is we should have 2 in the North Island, 1 in the South. We should even probably start to looking at remediating landfills. We should start lifting the levies even higher. If they were to say to me, if you look at the whole theory around waste, the levy to create diversion from landfills, they're now changing that terminology from what I believe, because waste to energy is a threat to that, because we're 100% diversion from landfill, with the exception of what we're going to sort out, right? So they definitely don't want to be working with us, because we're going to divert from landfill and create hurt for them. So they're in a bit of a quandary. How do we fix this? In my view, they're not sure. I believe New Zealand does want energy for waste, but they want a full toolbox. They still want to recycle. And I think that's the path forward. I believe New Zealand does want energy for waste, but they want a full toolbox. They still want to recycle. And I think that's the path forward. But once things are mixed, once it's in the house, you go into your own home, your own garage, 4 or 5 different little things. Councils can't really make it work. The cost around that sorting, it's just not working. Not everything is recyclable. That's a theory. That's a want, that's a desire. We understand that. If it's not possible, how do we achieve it? We've just closed our 2 cardboard plants. OG are now exporting. So now we're shipping reliant on our recycling. They're going to get more and more choosy about what's recyclable, what's not recyclable, and you're going to get more going to landfill. I don't see anywhere around. Shipping is, those guys are bigger than countries. The 2 largest shipping lines in the world coming here, MSC and Maersk. We've got contracts with both of them, and these guys are monsters. They share 30, or what it might be, 25 or 30% of the cargo between them. We're not even 1% of their GDP. Now, with all of the political stuff going on in the world, they're making choices. Do we stop here? Do we bring containers? We need to have processes here. We need to do more and more of what we're doing. And that, New Zealand Steel entering back into the EAF process is going to be good for New Zealand. It means we're going to be making steel out of steel. We need OG closing down is not a good thing. We need a cardboard and paper plant. All this stuff was made by the Right Honourable Robert Muldoon back in the day, right? And we're still living on it today. But what's in the future? We haven't produced anything since.
And of course, the big issue then is we're putting everything into containers, putting them onto ships, burning more oil to send them somewhere to be recycled.
But it makes us feel good. Zero waste, they're more than happy to do that, because it's not in our backyard. We want to pretend that we're doing something that we're really not doing. We don't know what's going on over there. Ideology. Because I think if we're going to work with reality, we'd probably look at things a little bit different. I'm probably concerned more about landfills due to the waterways, personally. I've seen destruction of waterways in the Pacific and landfills, and we keep, and I've seen that happen, and it worries me, that reefs, these people that are living in the Pacific can no longer eat food from those reefs because these landfills that are leachating into the reefs, so the fish are no longer consumable. I've seen that, and I'm thinking, well, what's happening here with all those old landfills?
This idea of rehabilitating landfills, so developing technology, isn't it?
Oh, the technology's there now. Yeah, there was a gentleman, Bill Harris, who spoke at the hearing, and his father, I've met Bill a few times, know Bill really well, he's a lovely man. His father actually ran both landfills in Te Awamutu, one in Kiki, one in Te Awamutu. And he was talking openly about his father used to use the excavators and crush down the cars and bury them. The technology is there now to take that stuff out of that. What's happened to that?
Would they have those old historic landfills? They're not protected from the water table, are they?
No, there's no membrane.
Yeah.
And
and that worries you, doesn't it?
Well, it should worry you. It should worry everybody. I've got children and grandchildren, and I like the idea of New Zealand being clean and green. But we seem to have lost our way a little bit with our council structure and the politicisation and weaponising of councils by the crews that are running them. And I have a little bit of an issue with that because, my view is if someone gets voted in and they have a mandate, no matter who they are, what they choose, then they should have control, but I'm not sure that they do. And personally, I think that the RMA, while it's not performing, I don't think there's any problem with the RMA structure itself. And here's the catch. After being through this process for 5 years, right? And the RMA process...
5 years.
5 years. The RMA process is actually a 90-day structure, technically. It should take 90 days. 5 years we've been in this. It's not the RMA that's the problem. It's not the cultural impact assessments that's the problem. I believe cultural impact assessments should be done. But how can it be done properly if they're not funded and if they aren't staffed? There should be a cultural impact assessment. It shouldn't be just about council people making decisions. But the council get to decide, is this notified, is this non-notified, depending on what they want. If they don't like you, you're going to get the full ride. You're going to get the full notification. They're going to let all their friends know. It's going to get the cultural impact assessment. But if they like you, you're going to get the free pass. That is the problem.
Why don't they like you?
Well, I don't know if it's about me personally. They probably don't like me now personally. But what I'm seeing is that there's a real lack of accountability, in my view, in holding these people that work at councils accountable to the structure. If the RMA is set in law, then it should be simple. Their job should be to get you to abide by the laws of the RMA, help you get across that line, and then help you get up and running so you can employ people and make $1. And what I'm seeing is there's no accountability around that power, right? And they like to really see how far they can take that power from time to time. My view on the RMA is that if we can hold the people in the councils accountable, fiscally accountable, if they don't do their job, then we should be able to take them to court for those costs. Then the timings would increase. We wouldn't have to get away with the RMA. We wouldn't need to create a fast track. But I also believe that it shouldn't be just in their court. The iwi people, not just the iwis, the hapu people. I believe that cultural impact assessment shouldn't happen, but if that all needs to be lined up with the law too, because everyone needs to do their job properly. Business people should be able to choose who to go to. We should be able to then rely on the law to hold everybody accountable. There's a lot of people throwing mud, at people. Councils are not courts. Councils are private individuals that are there to manage the policies of those areas. Everybody seems to think that it's not okay to disagree with the council. And I don't know if you agree with it, but councils are full with people, different people. Not everybody's the same, right? And not everybody behaves. And we need to hold everybody accountable, whether you're in the government, whether you're in the local government, whether it's me, whether you're a citizen, or whether you're a business person. We all need to be held accountable. It's no good if councils aren't held accountable. And at present, I think that there's no accountability wrapped around these councils, which is the reason why the RMA is not working. But I would not like to see things not done properly. I would not like to see industry just running rampant either. That wouldn't be good. But we do need to hold councils, we need to hold them, accountable. And they must be efficient. We need to hold them to that. At the moment, you've got these people taking off, pausing things, we've got consents rolling in Auckland for 4 years. you know. And we get dragged into these processes, and then all of a sudden, someone at the council, you point the finger at them with their inefficiency, and all of a sudden you're under abatement. And then all of a sudden you're a bad person. It's about holding everybody accountable. Working for a council with immense power, they need to be held accountable. The more accountability you put around it, then these people will start behaving. If you allow them to be lawless, do what they want, give them immense power, then you're going to have problems. And they're going to start weaponising and attacking people.
It's 5 years since you've come up with this idea to improve New Zealand's environmental footprint. Have you regretted it?
I met some magical people, had some wonderful support, huge amounts of cost. But I'm not sad. At the end of the day, I think that New Zealand really wants this. I think that if it's not going to be me, it won't be long before it's somebody else. And it'll happen. It has to happen, and it will happen. Do I regret this? There's times when I have regret, when I see personal attacks.
And you have been attacked a lot, haven't you?
I've been attacked a lot. Been attacked a lot personally, my son, my family, the business. It's quite easy to throw mud at people.
Let's address a couple of things that happened in the Environment Court. First of all, the Waipa Mayor's assertion that the amount of people who submitted against Paewira was a record-breaking number of people, and unequivocal proof that the people of Waipa don't want Paewira. But I think what she missed in all that is when people were filling out their forms, a lot of it was just stamped and signed.
Yeah, I believe from what we saw, we were following it all. I mean, I think they're quite a small group. They were holding market sessions and just getting people to sign a form, and they were filling them out, stamping them, and a lot of the forms were uniform. I think ultimately, at the hearing in the last 2 or 3 days, I sat through, there were 53 submitters. So, 53. I think about 13 of those were positive. And most of those people positive were people who had travelled the world and seen the plants, and who basically understood the science. There were about 30, maybe less, submitters who read a statement, or they weren't questioned. They didn't have to tell the truth. They just basically said their piece and gave their opinion and opened their heart to what they think is right. And, you know, unfortunately, even a lot of that got quite personal, but that's fine. They're entitled to, they don't know.
Well, you're being polite, I'll say what I think. I read a lot of those statements. Misinformation, disinformation. A lot of the things that they said will happen if Paewira is built does not stand up to any kind of rational scrutiny.
No. There was one lady actually that crashed her car. I was behind her going into FMG Stadium, and she actually crashed her car into the barriers. That's how nervous she was. I felt for her, you know, and I backed my car up and I, you're right. And, oh, she was absolutely beside herself. And she went on and she read a statement. Then she realised I was the applicant, and she was all thankful, but then she was just really frightened of me. I find that sort of behaviour really weird, but, you know, I also understand that until I'd seen it, I didn't understand it. And I think once these people see it, they'll be the first ones sitting in the cafe defending it, to be honest with you. There's a lot of fear around this, but my grandkids will be working in there. There's nothing to fear. Promise you.
Now, one of the things that was used against you was the fire. You had a fire at your Auckland plant.
Yeah, look, I've been in the scrap metal game pretty much, well, not always working, but since I was a child. My dad was a scrap metal guy. Scrap metal tools haven't really changed a lot, right? You're either shearing, shredding, or cutting with gas torches steel. Still the same. That's how it works. But we haven't really had out of control fires up until the invention of lithium. To be fair, we have fire incidents almost every day, but we manage them. The two incidents that we couldn't manage where the fire service came was because we ran out of water. One of them, you know, and to be fair, the main processors of cars and whiteware and shredders in this region are ourselves, Sims and National Steel. Out of all three of those companies, we've had the least amount of issues. It's an industry issue, as you pointed out, but we don't actually accept lithium. Lithium comes in hidden in things. So to get back to what you were talking about with regards to the waste system, and it's very hard to screen out lithium too. So the waste guys are suffering under this process. What I find is the council's ignorance around it. They are more than aware. You have the Auckland City Council right now holding scientific rubbish truck trials in the King Country as we speak. The Auckland City Council, while bullying all the scrap industry and the waste industry, and I'll use the words bullying, because they know what's happening, but they're bullying us. They're bullying us because they don't know how to fix it. I know that the Auckland City Council itself, since January, has had 15 fires up until April, prior to my fire. 15 of their own fires. I've had 2 in 5 years. And we've had a few other incidents. But my team, I'm very proud of them. You know, that last fire was really interesting. It was, I was actually in Hamilton. It was 4 p.m. The heat of the day, I believe it was 28 degrees. The wind was at 35 kilometres per hour, prime fire conditions. There was no movement of pile in the yard. We've got it all on video. And the smoke started rising. My guys started attacking it. We emptied 22 to 25 IBCs. An IBC is an international container system, and we have them filled with 1,000 litres of water. And basically the excavators just crush the water over the fires, and we keep digging until we find it. Unfortunately, we ran out of water and the fire grew. The fire service, and these guys are all good guys, they turned up, but the access to water in Auckland was limited. And it took them about 1:20 hour to set up. By the time that fire was at a point where people could see it. So it was out of our control. Since then, our guys stayed there. I think me and my son were there. My son was there for 36 hours. I was there for about 18 hours, and we ran the gear, and that's the easiest way to treat some of these issues is to put it through the system. Once everything's through the system, then you take the danger out of the piles. So I think a lot of that planning now has gone into place, not only us, but with Sims. We've built quite large fire suppression within our systems. We're now catching rainwater off our roofs, and there's plenty of it at the moment. We've got 30,000 litre tanks, and we've got high pressure pumps right by our poles. So since then, we've created the ability to fight more fires, because we don't really want the fire service. We want to be able to, anything that happens, we want to be able to find it. The biggest problem for the public and for the industry is that all of this stuff is getting smaller and smaller, Andrew. Earbuds, keys, phones, toys. You know, the lithium system is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And this sort of thing here, that's got a battery in it. And you know, the problem with lithium is that it's not actually the lithium that's the issue, it's a mineral. It's lithium ion and lithium primary. One is not rechargeable and the other one is rechargeable. Now if that charge gets trapped in that mineral, then it's holding that charge. And that's when the device stops working. You can't recharge it, it's not letting you have any electricity. That's when people throw it in the rubbish. What happens is if that gets punctured or whatever, that erupts. So when you're working with waste and you've got people grabbing with machinery, or you've got bins, trucks pushing the waste up, and there's friction, and sometimes that's where you create fires, right? But it's the fact that these batteries within these devices that are being imported, and they're pouring over the borders, tons, hundreds of tons a day. And we haven't quite worked out how we're going to, well, the general councils haven't really worked out.
But you
How
on
to
the
fix it.
ground, you're evolving. Your practices are evolving and changing
We're evolving
to meet new demands.
Yeah, and getting back to what you said, about our ability, we, as I said, we're seeing issues daily. We're issuing invoices to people who drop us off where there's issues that we find. We find fire extinguishers that haven't been discharged. We find things all the time. Batteries, cars with batteries. We're constantly finding things. We don't accept these things, but what we do is we treat them for the region. We fix it. And we want to be able to do that. Now, I don't think that council's bullying us is the way forward. I think council's empowering, working with us is the way forward. But I'm not in the council. So,
During the Environment Court process, your integrity is called into question numerous times. Is that hurtful?
yeah, of course it is. It's hard.
Do you consider yourself to be a man of integrity?
Look, what does integrity mean to people? For me, I'm a man of my word. I work all around the world. I agree with people daily on international contracts. We exchange value based on trust. In my industry, I'm well known. People drop off metal of value and wait for payment. Would they do that if I didn't have integrity?
You operate your business to the highest standards?
I operate my business to the best standards possible.
Do you go over and above what's required?
What is required? At the end of the day, that's an interesting question, but it's quite broad. We would be considered one of the best in the industry. Absolutely.
And you treat your workers well?
I do my best to treat my workers well. Do they treat me well? Sometimes. We've got a pretty good crew.
So what's it like to sit in a court and have people saying, and there were some pretty harsh things said about you. How does that feel?
It's hard. Our King's Council sort of said that in the last 2 or 3 days I had to sit there. I was busy out there working, trying to make money to pay the bills, right? And so I had to go sit there and listen to the submitters, and you can't question them. They don't have to tell the truth. They just get to express their opinion. And through the process, as we were agreeing more and more conditions, you could just see our confidence was gaining. The guy, I realised that my German engineers were at the forefront edge of the world with regards to these processes. And you just start understanding the capability of the people that you're working with. And but this, to me, is a process that we're looking to bring in a new industrial process to be able to employ people to make $1 to treat waste. But this got turned into a hurtful exercise at demeaning a person and their family in the end, because there's nothing really stopping this scientifically. So then it came down to personal attacks, and I knew that was going to happen. I was aware that it was, in fact, some of me and my advisors, we talked about this before we knew this was going to happen. Then one figure, his name Eon Fitzpatrick, rang me a couple of times saying that he didn't want to hurt me and my family and we should stop and all the rest of it, otherwise he's going to destroy us and all the rest of it. And I said, go for it.
How is he going to destroy you?
Oh, personal attacks and things like that, It's activism, right? He's allowed to do whatever he wants to do. But I'm not investigating him, they're all looking at me. I have nothing to hide. I consider myself one of the best in our industry. We treat products, we shred products. It's an industry. It's a tough industry, and it's not easy. We work with the labour side of of the recycling industry who other people don't want to work with. I love working with these people. We're called a clan business because we employ families. You know, we have our popcorn moments just like anybody does, but I know that we work to the correct standards. I know that we do everything right. That does not mean that we're going to agree with every council or every political style behaviour, you know. I'm going to hold them accountable. They're going to hold me accountable, I'm going to hold them accountable. They need to do their jobs. And then to do their jobs within fair timelines, you know. It's so easy for these people to slide these timelines. And then we end up with 3, 4, 5 year programs, right? And we see it all the time. We see it all the time. Every industrial person I know, every developer I know, same thing. Councils are out of control. We need to hold the councils, not so much the voted people, the employed people accountable.
Now, one of the interesting things that I learned from this process is that New Zealand's already burning on an industrial scale.
Correct.
And we're doing it all over the country, and we're burning all kinds of things, everything from bodies to tyres.
Correct.
But we're not doing it in modern, technologically advanced plants that are designed to mitigate environmental damage.
Correct. Yeah, and one of the big things, and I think there was an interesting comment on the hearing because we've gone forward to. We'll talk about the conditions afterwards, but we've gone forwards, and one of the first things we put on the table was transparency. Transparency on our website, 24/7 of our emissions profile, with the current European law standards or the standards for New Zealand right beside them.
Because we don't have those standards yet.
No, we don't.
But like as we found in Australia, who have just gone into, well, they're building, I think Australia's going to build, I think, 2 have been given resource consent, and there's 10 more.
Yeah, there's 11, I think total, yeah.
11, and they've been through all this before us, and they're also changing the laws now. They're developing new legislation to manage these plants.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it does all come.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you get approval and you go ahead, it'll be down to you to operate it to the European standards.
Yes, well the plants are actually designed. It was interesting because there was a comment from the, I think it was EDF, the Environmental Defence Society. I mean, I find these guys really interesting because, you know, you go in with transparency. It's the first time transparency has been offered under the RMA from what I understand. So I'm already setting the bar for everybody already in the industry. And they said the only reason he's offering transparency is because it must be bad. It must be bad. So, you know, I did find that funny, you know, but...
in other words, no matter what you say, you're not going to win. You're still going to be the bad guy.
100%.
Yeah. And why are you the bad guy? Is it because some people... Well, there's been an awful lot of misinformation and disinformation about this process, and a lot of people are really invested in that misinformation.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I call it doom scrolling. I call it when people sit there and... It's doom scrolling, right? But there's no... People need to understand that what you're watching is entertainment. It's you know, you shouldn't believe everything you read, or you should do as you do, Andrew. You should check it out and back it up, you know.
But unfortunately, a lot of people don't know how to do that. You know, they don't know how to ascertain what's real and what's not real.
Yeah. Look, to be honest with you, we've worked with some really good professional people, even in some of the councils. I mean, you know, give you an example. After that Waikato Times article, we had 2 snap inspections from different councils in different regions because people rung up and made accusations against GMS.
Your opponents?
I don't know. Anonymous accusations.
So this is after the RMA, this is the Environment Court
No,
article.
This was after the Environment Court article that was in the Waikato Times and was on...
last week sometime?
Yeah, last week.
Yeah.
Well, on Monday, there were allegations levelled that we were pouring different fluids into different streams and rivers. So, yeah, we got a couple of snap inspections, but that was interesting. That was interesting, yeah.
And what was the result of the inspections?
Well, the result of the inspection was it's not true, and And they gave us clearance, and then they said normally we don't investigate anonymous calls, but we were told to. And so, I think that we've ruffled a few feathers in the councils. I don't think all. I mean, this council inspector was in the Taranaki region, and he was a really good guy, and he was very open and transparent. And he did some investigation, and he sent us a clearance certificate, but it's so easy to do. It's so easy to do here, It's the noise issue in Hamilton, right? Big issue in how we. They said that we had done something wrong on the noise issue. No, that was a fight between us and the council, because the council sold some land that was in between industrial, rail, and houses. They sold the land that was in between in Hamilton, and it was the former mayor, who's now the chairman of the WRC. He sold that to himself, his own development company, and he developed houses. In the first 4 years, they accepted their own noise abatement issues, and then the next district plan change, he changed it and put it on the industrial side. The scrapyard that we now are in, I used to work at when I was a child, and it had a rail siding, so it's right next to the rail. It has a rail siding. We've been hand loading steel into rail when we were kids. That's what we did. My understanding was that it was prior to RMA, it had existing use rights. So the reason why we went to the court was to sort this out between us and the council. Judge Harlan did a great job. She said you got 18 months to resolve the noise or shift. So we looked around. Hamilton at the time had no industrial land suitable, so we couldn't shift. So what we did was, the thing that was creating the most noise, we got a noise modelling done, and they said if you move this, this and this, then you'll be fine. So to do that, we some of the processing here, we decided to build a new yard in New Plymouth, and it was during COVID. So we were working through COVID. All our staff worked. We kept everyone working.
Because you're an essential business.
Yeah, we're essentially part of the waste industry. Although the waste industry weren't recycling at that time, they were burying everything. But we won't talk about that. We were an essential business. So we were receiving deliveries and we were processing. The processing for there's only anything under 3 millimetre in steel needs to be shredded, right? That's the most efficient way to process it. The shredder makes a bit of noise. So we decided to move the shredder to New Plymouth because there was nothing in that region. And we did built a new yard with the Taranaki Regional Council and did a RC down there. Now, because of COVID, the RC was slightly late and it was going to be 6 weeks delayed. So we asked the court if we could have I think it was a 12-week extension to the limit that Judge Harlan gave us. So we went to the environmental court, and then it became a bit ugly. We didn't challenge the order of the judge, we challenged his behaviour. And he recused himself, and then in the decision, it was fine. They understood he was recused, and we didn't breach any abatements or anything. There was an argument over basically his behaviour. That was why we went to the appeals court. Judge Harlan's standard order was never breached. I think one day, and we were being measured for the next 3 months, and we haven't had an issue in 5 years. So the way that was portrayed in the court was we can't be trusted, bad people, all of that bullshit, but it's just not true. And it was one house, 2 decibels. But there's trains that go past that house. The decibel level on the industrial side is 50 decibels at that house. Trains go past that house 24 times a day on the main trunk line at 84 decibels. 34 times higher than us. And my son lives 3 doors down from them. They don't know that, but he does. He lives 3 doors down. So, we're more than aware. We don't see that as an issue. We respect our environment. We want to work with the people there, but it's so easy to throw mud at people based on a council S92 request. The councils are there to do their job. right? The laws are there to protect us as well. So conditions can be held on both parties. And, you know, as an industrialist or as a businessman or entrepreneur, if I see behaviour from the council that isn't correct, I'm going to challenge it every time. They need to hold to the laws just as much as we do. And if their employees misbehave, we will go after them too. Everyone needs to be held accountable, otherwise things don't work.
Do you want to talk about the Waipa Mayor and her submission?
I've never met the lady. I think when I look at political people, I mean, I guess me personally, I'm pretty conservative, but I have a social conscience. So I'm a little bit of a political orphan, I would say, Andrew. I sit right in the middle. So, you know, I have friends who are quite extreme on both sides. I'm a Māori too, so I see all of the bumpiness. But I think there's two types of people: workhorses and show horses. Show ponies and work horses, right? So the Waipa Mayor, if she wants to do good by the Waipa people and manage the system well, then good for her, I'll support her. If she's just there to promote herself, create division, and over-politicise issues to get herself elected, and talk shit, then I don't really have much respect for her, and she's probably a clown, and the people of Waipa should look for better. The Waipa Mayor, if she wants to do good by the Waipa people and manage the system well, then good for her, I'll support her. If she's just there to promote herself, create division, and over-politicise issues to get herself elected, and talk shit, then I don't really have much respect for her, and she's probably a clown, and the people of Waipa should look for better. You know, the people of Waipa need their system managed correctly, they need their waste managed correctly, they need their water delivered to their homes, they need their rates controlled to be monitored, and they need to know who they're paying invoices. The one thing that I did note from that hearing was the Mayor of Waipa made quite a broad statement, because I'm aware, obviously, that the regional and district councils take 50% of the levy from a landfill. It's currently $60. $30 of that gets split between the regional councils and the district councils, and then 50% of the levy, $30 per tonne, would then go to the Wasteman's Fund. The Wasteman's Fund is what they apply to fund people. The rest of it goes to the councils to manage those projects. All right. So technically they're conflicted. Me coming in to set up a waste to energy plant is going to hurt their bank. And she and her lawyer stood up and said that they had no contractor managing waste for them. And I asked their lawyer, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yeah, we're sure. We don't have any contractors managing waste." Now, I would challenge everybody in the Waipa district to look at their rates bill, because there is definite costs in there for their waste and the management of their recyclables. So for her to stand there at that hearing and say that, I mean, I know we did show her a couple of invoices. She said she wasn't aware of them, but they were definitely Waipa Council invoices to contractors that work in the waste system, and she wasn't aware of those invoices. So someone who's running for mayor that doesn't know the bills that she's paying or the invoices that she's paying, in my view as a businessman, I don't know, can she be trusted? Would you have her looking after your bank account, Andrew?
Well, let's finish up, Craig, with this question. Knowing what you know now, would you do it all again? No, too much damage to the family, and 5 years is too long for any project. And millions of dollars.
A lot of cost, a lot of hurt. My intention, regardless, is to wrap this up. To be honest with you, in my heart, probably 75% feels that this is going to go ahead. I think New Zealand wants this. I think New Zealand needs this. whether this particular project goes ahead or not, we will wrap this up and we'll continue doing what we do, but waste to energy will be here. They're already lining up. There's nothing scientific stopping this. It's politics.
Tell us about Fonterra, Craig.
Fonterra, yeah, they were in the hearing. Look, I think I used the words privilege, which I think upset their lawyer a little bit, but they're a big company. They're owned by the farmers of New Zealand. They do hold immense privilege within New Zealand, within the council structure, so much so that they have a dairy overlay on industrial process, right, which means that you can't build close to them. And, I respect that. I think that they employ a lot of people, but you need to be paying attention when you have teams of specialists bigger than councils that, as a company, these guys employ ex-politicians, every type of specialist that we have in the country, and they have teams that are bigger than councils to manage their processes and their consent processes and to work with the council. So we need to make sure that we hold them accountable as well. And they've had immense privilege within New Zealand for a long period of time. They're a cooperative, similar to an iwi, in my view, as a Māori. So they're owned by the people, but like any cooperative or iwi, it's a structure. And in that structure, you have people running that structure, so it's a faceless entity. I thought that Fonterra asked hard questions. They offered terms and conditions to accept, and initially we didn't accept all terms, but ultimately in the end we agreed to most of their terms and conditions. My view is that, in fact, all of the conditions that we were asked of from all of the specialists, including the board, they asked for certain conditions with regards to bonds and things like that, which we did our best to agree on, although that these things are costs. But we believe in this, and so we agreed to pretty much every condition that was discussed and offered. Fonterra had a gentleman there from Russell McVeigh in Auckland. They asked tough questions, and as you said to me, they made allegations about integrity and can he be trusted and all the rest of it. But I think I've had a couple of headbutts with different councils over different things, which we rely on the courts to sort. And I would say if you were to research Fonterra, they would have had hundreds and hundreds of discretionary issues with councils. So, I see that as being normal in the industrial world. But I think in this case it was portrayed a trust and all that sort of stuff. At the end of the day, I think at the end of these hearings, the judge made it very clear. The judge made it very clear that industrial processes need robust conditions. And he said, not only for the applicant or the entrepreneur, but also for the councils. We need conditions to be protected from them also. We don't want predatory behaviour around consents when we need them done. We want fair timings. We want to be able to employ people and manage things and plan. So yeah, I need to be kept in line with robust conditions, and they need to be kept in line as well, because ultimately the courts are the places that you go for resolution with regards to issues with councils. I thought that Fonterra presented well. They asked for certain things. I thought there was a few things in there that were a little bit more perceptionist, which was perception guided, with regards to things about their product creations, with their deluge program, and fortunately enough, our engineers are very skilled in that side, and they started explaining to me, the combustion system with regards to drying milk powder. And, wood combusts at about 220 degrees Celsius. So these systems, this is about carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is given off by any product prior to explosion or combustion. So, the system that they're talking about with the deluge system, it wasn't about wrecking a product. It was about the heating of their product and then their water treatment or their fire safety for their total systems, which I thought was really interesting, and I learned a little bit about that process with regards to Fonterra. I thought they did a reasonable job. They asked good questions. Their air emissions guys were efficient. They offered fair conditions. They asked us for a few things to be done, and I see them as a possible future provider and possible partner for energy and or steam. So as though it looks like they're not on side, in my view, if this goes ahead, I believe that Fonterra could be a possible partner in the future.
So their questioning of you and your motives wasn't as harsh as it could have been.
I think that Fonterra, the size of the company that they are and the amount of wealth and capability they hold, if they wanted to destroy what we were doing, they could have made things a lot harder than one lawyer from us today.
Now, one of the things, while we're on this subject, we should address this. This is one of the big cases that have been made against Paewira from the Mayor of the Waipa down. You cannot have a waste-to-energy facility near a food processing facility, which ignores the fact that in Europe, where they have more waste-to-energy plants than anywhere else, food production and waste-to-energy plants are often side by side.
Yeah, correct.
Because they utilise the byproducts of waste-to-energy incineration, which is electricity and steam.
Well, I think the other thing that...
hot water.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those are the key products, right? So if you have a plant out in the middle of nowhere, the Europeans are more efficient with regards to sustainability also, and climate and environmental behaviour. So for them, driving automobiles in different directions doesn't help the environment. They know that having these plants closer to where the waste is, and then being able to move the product back to the people that these plants can produce, if you don't have to involve vehicles, is better for the environment. So there's a couple of reasons around that. The perception of packaging waste by food, my view, is a little bit of a entertainment phenomenon from the EDF and Don't Burn Waipa side. I mean, we have incineration plants next to Burger King in Hamilton. So if that's not packaging food...
Is that a crematorium?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Next to a fast food joint?
Next to a fast food joint, 150 metres, we're 300 metres away from these guys. So.
Yeah, and that's the other point, of course. You're not right next to Fonterra. There's a river between you.
Well, there's a small stream, but we're talking about quite large space, right? I think between us and them is 300 metres.
Yeah.
But yeah, the packaging of food next to waste, I mean, odour, things like that, I think people will be uniquely surprised.
One of those things that Don't Burn Waipa did bring up at the hearings a couple of times was all that to produce a minuscule amount of electricity, which is kind of funny because Paewira will produce enough electricity to power every home in the Waipa.
Easy.
More or less, yeah.
I think 30 to 40,000 homes. I think, I could be wrong on the number, but it's 15 megawatt per hour. So
it's a substantial amount of electricity.
Yeah, we can put a fourth line in, right? So if we put a fourth line in, then we'll be producing more, another 5 megawatts, up to 20 megawatt per hour. My view is, obviously the farm is available and the race course, is that we could do a small industrial service community there, provide more employment, put power and steam and heating into that environment. And then the waste would come off the road. Everyone talks about the waste, right? It's their waste. A lot of the time, all the waste is coming through there anyway. All of the waste from New Plymouth, Te Awamutu, it's all going north, coming through on those roads. So, you know, there is no extra burden on these roads. I mean, there's 300 trucks going to Fonterra a day as it is. We're talking 20 or 30 trucks and trailers, whatever the domestic cars and trailers are. The cost for them will be the same as the current transfer station cost. But it'll be a nice environment. I think they're going to be hugely surprised by what they see. I think this will be great for New Zealand, and if it ain't me, it'll be somebody else.